All right, welcome back, everyone. So here we are with our owl, and we're ready to start doing some materials, I think, and playing a little bit more with making this thing look cool. So I want to start off with the most basic of materials, and I'm going to actually just select the beak here. And actually, you know what? What should I do the most basic material on? You know what? Let's just do like the uh, the whites of the eyes. Okay, so every object within the owl is separate based on how we created the layers in Rhino. So if I go over here to my owl eye here, I believe is what I've got selected. Yes, there's this one and there's this one. They're right here. And I want to make these a color, right? So if I select this owl eye here, I can come over here to this little tab here where we have materials. I can delete the material that exists there, and I can add a new one. And this one I will title Owl Eye. And notice I use underscores. I tried to use underscores for everything. I mean, I didn't do a good job in my layers, but I just made it all one word. So not a big deal. But Owl Eye material here. If I double click here, I can change the color. Maybe I'll make it like a yellow color. Sure. And you see it changing there because I am in my ray traced view here. And also, if I wanted to get rid of all of the camera stuff and details here, I can get rid of this overlay too. Just remember to turn it back on when you need to see that stuff, but get rid of it so it's not in the way anymore. And then if I wanted to, say, make this shinier, I can go to the roughness here and lower it down to 0. And you can see now the reflection of the light in there. And that's kind of why I put the lights and stuff in now, so that you can see the way they interact with the light too. So if you turn a roughness down to 0, it makes it shiny. If you turn it all the way up, it makes it super matte. So just like in real life, the reason why things look shiny is because they're smooth. I can kind of control where I want that to be. And once it looks the way you want it to, you can also let's do this overlay here. We'll just do wireframe now. Yeah, I'll leave the overlays on. It's fine. So I can shift click over here, and whatever's orange is what is the focus. So I want to shift click back over here. So now I've got this owl eye reddish color, and this one is orangish color in the outline, meaning this is the one I've selected. So I can actually go up to object here and go to link/transfer data. And this, I mean, it's a little bit ridiculous to do this right now this way, but you'll see that it'll be something helpful in the future. And I can go link materials, and that just copies the materials from one to the other. Okay. I can also go to this one if I wanted to do this, and then I can shift click over here to grab this one. And then I can delete this material, add a new one, and call it, I don't know, eyeline, and I want to make this like punk rock black. So I'm going to make it black, and then I'm going to make it super matte so that it doesn't have any roughness. Okay. And then because I've got that one orange selected, if I go right click, I believe I can just right click, right? No. It's got to go object, link, materials. What happens if I just hit M? No. Object, link, materials. Okay. So that's the most basic type of material, is just, linking just colorful materials, if you will. And then if I wanted to, I could also maybe make this black. I don't know. So like the subsurface scattering is black. And whenever I change on one material, because it's the same material, it changes to the other one. So like, for example, now if I change the color to, white, it changes the whole thing. Very cool. Sheen tint. Down. It's fine. Just leave it like that. And then, so yeah, those are basic colors. Other cool stuff. Let me select the beak here. I'll do a new material on the beak. Title this material new beak. This one, I want to do glass. So think about your color palette here too. Be creative, right? I think I'm going to maybe do, keep it all kind of warm tones, maybe like a orange. But then I want to make this glass. So I'm going to come down here to where it says transmission and bump that all the way up. And then if I take the roughness all the way down, you can see it's kind of got like this glass-like sheen to it. Almost look like crystals or something. And if it's too dark, I can still bump up the lightness some. And play with the transmission roughness. Okay. So that gives me like kind of a glass look to it. All right. Depending on how the light's hitting it too. And the final rendering and what it's reflecting on. Right now it's reflecting, you know, you can see the eyes reflecting in it. It's very shiny, kind of cool. Looks good. Let's do the brows here. So selected both of them and then go to material and I'm going to get rid of that material, create a new material, call it brow. And this material, I don't care really. I'm going to just kind of maybe make it blackish kind of color. Oops. Kind of like a flesh tone, I think. Yeah. A little desaturated. And then since this is orange, again, it's going to transfer when I link materials. Okay. Those are some very basic ones. Also metals, right? So maybe I want to make these feet a metal material. So if I get rid of this, do a new one, just like my base color, make it black. And then perhaps I'll bump up the metallic all the way up here, roughness all the way down. And now it's got like this black chromish kind of deal. But if I do it like, yeah, a little bit more on the light side. You can also make it like gold, right? So if I change this color to like a, I always think like a greenish kind of yellowish red. Cool. Now we've made them solid gold. Cool. All right. Maybe I'll make these toes just the same material as the beak. So if I select the 3 toes, select the beak, and then I go up here, object, link, materials. All right. Very cool. I'm going to actually now take this background here that is white and get rid of that material. Do a new one and call it backdrop. And this material, I'm going to make it black just to kind of give some contrast. And I can make it decrease the roughness a little bit so there's like some hint of the reflected light, or bring it all the way up so it's like an infinite void. But I think I'm going to keep it like that maybe. Let's look at the camera view. Yeah, I think I like that kind of tone going on here. All right. So our owl is looking very good. I might want to do something with the eyes. Let's see, the eyes here, I'm feeling like making them glow. So emission is what makes it glow. So if I click on this, instead of having it black, if I bump it up to like a white emission, I can also have it be a colorful emission. Oh, I forgot to get rid of the material, sorry. Minus, plus, new, material. Call it glow eye. And I'll change this to kind of what color do we want it to glow? Maybe like a sadistic looking red. Okay, and then emission strength, we can bump it up. You know what? I'm going to just leave this black. Change the base color to that red. And then emission strength, bump that up. Find the right spot to make it look like it's glowing. So yeah, those are the three parameters you want to mess with: the base color, the emission color, and the strength of the emission. Okay, and that's orange. I can now link the materials again. So object, link. Okay. So this is, I think, kind of the fun part, right? Where you're just playing with the materials and kind of having some fun. I'm feeling like the transmission roughness needs to come down on this now that we've got more things reflecting its. Yeah, there we go. Cool. All right, so those are still kind of basic, right? We're just messing with parameters within the materials. But what if we wanted to add texture, like feathers to the body or something like that? Now, this is where we get more complicated with the materials. And I highly advise you play with this stuff. But if you wanted to skip ahead and ignore this part, you probably could for now, but you're going to come back around to it. But this is where it gets really fun. So we're going to start talking about things like UV maps and doing some painting on this object too. So I'm going to do the chest first. So if I select this chest area here, it's an orange. And then I'm going to go Control I, H to hide it, all the rest of it. So now I've just got the chest. I can look at the UV map for it. So if I go to edit mode by tabbing over, and then up here, go to UV editing, we can see this is the flat map of that object. Great. So if I hit the decimal point and zoom in here, we can see our object laid out here. So you've got the flat feet up here. You've got probably the back of the chest area divided up right here, and the front of the chest area right there. I can edit this map so that I've got more to play with here. So like the feet, I'm not going to do anything on the bottom of the feet, so I don't really care about that. So I'm going to select these feet area right here and just change the size of it. So I'm going to grab the face selection tool here, which is this one right there. And if I click on a face, you can see I can select it. So I'm going to actually grab all of this. Let's see if I can get it with precision here. Because I don't want to grab any other pieces. Okay. And then I can go S for scale and bring it right down there because I don't really care about this. It's not going to have any material on it. But then G to move it around. Then I want to actually increase the scale of this. So I'm going to hit S for scale. And then I'll do X to scale it this way. G. Okay. S a little bit. X. Bring it down a little bit. It's a little too much. And then I'm going to scale this one up. G, move it over, S, X, G, X as well. Okay, maybe I'll move this again, G. I'll move it right around there. Okay, so this is where you're going to be able to play with Photoshop and Illustrator and stuff to really make your objects look cool. So undo, 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 undo. Okay, move this over first because I just don't want to grab anything wrong, so it's easier to undo it. Scale it X, G, X, SX, bring it back. Okay, cool. So I'm trying to use as much as I can of this space because I'm going to actually layer on top of this an image of a texture that you can get image textures online, but I'm going to actually go ahead and create a new one here, I believe, new. And I'm going to do 1024 by 1024. Okay. We always use square. Square is great because square is what keeps everything locked in as far as aspect ratios that can be compressed when we're bringing them into other programs. So that's why we always use squares and multiples of 2. And we'll be doing that for all of our stuff. So 1024 by 1024, if you divide it by 2, is 512 by 512 divided by 2. You can keep going down all the way to 2, which is a scale factor that we use in game design and stuff so that we can compress things when we move further away from it. You know, think about like if you're trying to render everything at really high quality, even if it's very far away, it's unnecessary and it takes up extra processing power. So by using powers of 2, the software uses a compression technique that will allow for things that are further away to take up less of your computer's processor. So with that said, I've got now, this is my UV map. I've got it designed this way. I've got the size of it figured out here. I can export this and bring it into another program. So if I go File, Image, Image, Save, I can save it and I can call it chest. Okay. So I've got that UV map selected there. I can go to export UV layout. See, chest is just going to be the size of the sheet, but if I export the UV layout, I can have it be show all of the data on there too, the actual map. So if I go to Photoshop, I can then open that in Photoshop and draw on top of it. Do whatever on top of that, and it will map to the UV layout. So this is where all of your other VCD experience is going to come in handy. All right. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and open my file here. Try to find it. Where did I put it? Oh, 3.0. Chest PNG. Open. Okay, so that's just the blank one. And then there should be my other one. Open, chest. Yeah, and so this is the actual UV map. So if I wanted to draw on it, I would know where it was going to go just based off of the shapes here, right? But I'm actually going to just use this blank one here. I'm going to use a pattern that I created previously. So this was all made seamlessly in Illustrator. So if I go ahead and open recent, right here, this pattern I made it in Illustrator. And you can see that if I were to duplicate this over and over and over and over again, it would make a pattern that's seamless, like a tile, right? Because where this ends, it picks back up over here. So you can multiply it. And this was just made using vector lines. So this is a pattern that I can use as an image, but if I wanted it to have like the feeling of depth, like there's a sense of 3D space to it, you can use a filter in Photoshop that will allow for, under 3D filters here, you can generate what's called a normal map. So if I click on generate normal map, this will create a 3D image based off of the look of this. So if I look at this down here, you can see how it would look on a 3D object. I can change how much detail there is. I can also invert the height so that it is recessed in. And that's what I'm going to do. So basically, this is a normal map. And what a normal map is it's a way of telling the computer about texture without having to use a bunch of geometry. So if I file, save this as, call it normal map. It's already saved there. Save it. Boom. Place. It's fine. Okay. And I've got a bunch of different materials and stuff that I've made in the past. So then I can bring that in and I can even overlay it on top of my owl chest as well. So if I bring it in here, I can see how it would look on based on the size of it. I can go Control T, transform it down, Shift holding it. Oops. Control Z. Shift transform, Shift transform. And I can Shift transform it. I can even duplicate it. So I can go Control C, Control V. Oops. Hit Enter first, Control C, Control V. Okay. And then if I line them up, you can see how they overlap. Okay. And so on. So I can bring these two together here. Control C, Control V, and do it again. And then select all of these. And then maybe even Control T to transform them. Make them fill out the space here. Okay. And then I can just close this and save it. And, oh, I got to flatten it. Sorry. Flatten the whole thing. Merge visible. Okay. File. Save. Close. All right. And then back to Blender here. And now I can close this and then open it right here. Open. Okay. So now this object is going to have this kind of applied to it, but I have to go back to the materials on it and add that to it. So I'm going to tab back over, go to modeling here, hit my decimal point to zoom in on it. Okay. And then go into my visual style here and then go to my material. I'm going to get rid of this material. I'm going to do a new material, call this chest. And then I'm going to leave all of this the way it is, but I am going to go now to shading. Now this is where we can actually deal with a lot of the nodes and stuff that really make things powerful. So you can do an incredible amount of stuff here. So instead of having this be a visual style, like if I wanted to make this, add that image to this, it would look one way if it was just an image. And you would bring that in off the base color here. So if I pull this base color out, actually, no, go to add here. I'm sorry, add, input, texture, image texture. Okay. You see that you've got a way to open a file, and I can open the chest file, right? So I'm opening that image, and then I'm going to plug that into the base color. And now you can see that that image is actually on my object, okay? Do you want that though? No, it just looks kind of funky, right? You want it to be the texture of that, right? And then also, I don't like necessarily the orientation of that, so I want to rotate this as well. So let me actually just go back to Photoshop and rotate that. You know what? Actually, let me just make more multiples of it. Okay, so I'm going to make this, instead of being the target of the color, I'm going to make it be the target of the texture here through normal. So if I pull this out using add, vector, normal map. Boom. And you can see always the colors correspond. So the purple goes to the purple. Boom. The blue, or the yellow, I'm sorry, goes to the yellow. So if I pull this to there, then let me just break that link. Then when you look at it, you can see it looks like the texture. And then I can still play with the color here. So I can make this whatever color I want. And I can still do the roughness, make it shiny, and you can really see it now. Okay. And I can also make that the size of it smaller by introducing other things, like adding another node called mapping. Right here under vector, mapping, and adding another node and calling this one texture coordinate. Yeah, I know, a lot of new stuff. Bump the UV, because that's what we're using to map things. And then the vector to here. And then because this is not color, you don't need RGB, you need non-color. Boom. Okay. And then I can actually increase the scale of these. So if I do 10, 10, 10, you can see now it's much smaller, right? Because I'm multiplying it. 5, 5, 5. That looks better. Cool. All right, so now let's go ahead and go back to modeling and go tab over to the object mode and hit Alt-H to bring everything back. Cool. So that's getting a little bit more complicated, right? But it looks really cool, and you can make all your own textures and styles of stuff with that. So that's a super powerful thing that you can play with a lot more on your packaging design and other stuff too. All right, so now that we've got our owl pretty much down here, we've got and looking all right, but you do notice, of course, we've missed the owl body. So next step, we're going to do the owl's body. So let's go ahead and select the owl body and hit Control-I or Command-I if you have a Mac, and H. And I'll switch to our standard rendered no light view. And here what I want to show you is actually how to use the UV map that we talked about in the last part with the chest, to bring it into other programs like Photoshop and really go to town with making some cool stuff. So first step is to delete the existing material on the Materials tab, create a new one. And this material we're going to call Owl Body. And okay, so next what we're going to do is we're going to go to the UV editing tab. We'll just delete that. We don't even need that. That's just the previous texture we had up here. And then we're going to switch from object mode here to edit mode. Okay. And then we can see this is the UV map for the owl. And we can modify this by going to the shading tab here. So, or texture paint, I'm sorry. Texture paint here. Okay. And then under texture paint, we can do a few things. First, we want to switch from paint here to view. And then we want to go to the little drop down tab here. Oh, go to, well, let's go to open. Oh, sorry. We'll go to new. Okay, new 1024 by 1024. Hit OK. All right. And then we can switch from view here to paint. And I can paint a little bit on it just so you can see what it looks like. And then once you start to paint on the map, you can see that next to image up here, you get a little star. And that says that it's not saved. So this is crucial. Whenever you see this star next to image there, that's a key to why things are not transferring over. So we're going to go ahead and go to save. And I'm going to go ahead and save it as head paint. Okay, or whatever you want to save it as. All right. And then we can actually go back over to our materials here. and then go to where it says base color, change it to image texture. And then we can hit our down arrow here and go to Untitled 001 because evidently I didn't save it as head paint, but and now it's applied, so you can see kind of where we've painted, and we can continue to paint on it and tag it up. That looks kind of cool. Okay, and you can also paint over here too. So yeah. Cool, I like that. So I'm going to just leave it there for now. And go ahead and save it again. So you can see the star came back because we changed it. So we can go to save. Great. And then what I'm going to do is go back over to UV editing here and go to the UV tab and go to export UV layout. And I'm going to go ahead and do owl body UV. Then I can open up Photoshop and we can have even more fun. So those of you who are really good with Photoshop, this is going to be great for you. So I'm going to go ahead and go open. And I'm going to open up the head paint. And then I'm going to go ahead and open up also the UV map. Okay. And then I can actually just layer them on top of each other. Hit V here, move it over here, close you, move you into position. Okay, cool. So now with this like this, I can see where things are. So if I wanted to just go through and highlight areas around the eyes, I could do that. You know, you can really, like, if you wanted to put branding on something, this is where it's going to come in handy for packaging design. So you can design something in Photoshop and then layer it on top of your packaging in here. There's really a lot of stuff you can do with this. So I'm going to just go ahead and click over here. And just for fun, I'm going to use some brushes. So I'm going to hit B for brushes. And I'm going to go over to my brushes tab that I've got open. Y'all should know how to kind of do that by now. And I'm going to do some splattering. Okay. One thing to keep in mind is that there are seams in this thing. So if I go over to my view style here, switch back over to texture paint, you can see on the side here, this straight line is an indicator that you know, that's where the UV ends, and it's right here. So if I paint right there, you can see. So that is a little funky. You can pick where your seams are. That's more advanced. If you wanted to get into that, you could definitely do so. But for what we're doing, I'm just gonna kind of just let you know, acknowledge that there is a seam there. So when I go back over to Photoshop here, I can kind of clean that up a little bit just by making sure I'm doing kind of a similar treatment on both sides. And I'm not going to see it in the rendering anyway, so I don't care. Cool. So I'm just going to keep it simple, black and white. And I can do any brush I want. I can do all kinds of stuff, but this is good enough for me. Okay, cool. So I'm going to save this. Oh, wait. Sorry, I got to delete the overlay and then just save this, because you can't save it as a single PNG with layers. Rudimentary stuff. Okay, next what we need to do is we need to basically re-import this thing. So I'm going to now come over here and I'll go to open and just reopen the image. And now you can see that that splatter effect is on our owl. Cool. And you can... All right, so now it looks pretty interesting. I don't know how much I really like it, but it's okay. I'm just trying to show you some different stuff. Okay, so the last thing I want to do is just kind of render it out so that it looks as photorealistic as possible. And I might even do a little bit more painting on it before I do that, but you know, you get the idea of kind of what we can do with texture painting. So I will be back once I'm ready to render. All right, so I played with it a little bit more. I think I'm fine with this. So yeah, texture painting is really cool. There's a ton you can do in here. You can also do some sculpting stuff. There's, you know, a lot of different brush packs you can get. You can do cloning brushes. There's a ton you can actually do within this program. And sometimes it's easier because of seam issues on the side. You don't have that same seam issue. If I was going to paint on the side over here, you know, I can paint right there on that seam and it's fine. Where in Photoshop, you have that issue with the seam, but it does help with Photoshop if you're trying to apply like a label or something like that. So that's some of the kind of cool stuff you can do in here. I'm going to go ahead and play a little bit more with the materials here. Maybe I'll play with the metallic aspect to it, make it kind of a, and maybe even bring up the roughness some. And I like it a little bit shiny. Cool. All right. So now the rendering is where we can get into some fun stuff. So let's go back over to modeling here. So we've got it all set up. Oop, oh, sorry. Let's go back over to shading and make sure we've got our shading image save. Okay. Well, let's check to make sure. Okay, cool. Now it transferred over. Shading, modeling. Okay. All right, and then tab back over, make sure you're in object mode. Okay, cool. So the next thing I want to talk about is depth of field and camera specs. There's a lot of stuff you can still do with this to make it look really awesome. So I'm going to switch over to my camera, which we set up previously. And then I'm going to go into view here and go to camera, frame camera bound so that it's fully, whoops, I didn't lock in my camera. Hold on. If I didn't lock in my camera, pop that out. And then we're going to go to view, camera to view, pop into camera. Okay. So now when I zoom in and out, I'm in the right view. Okay, cool. So lots of stuff we can do with our rendering. So I've got my camera here. If I click on the edge, well, let's see if I can click out of camera. Where's find my camera? Is that it? That one? Yes. Okay. So if I click on my camera, this little camera tab comes up and I'm in perspective and my focal length and everything is set right here. Let me pop over into camera view here. With it selected, I still have this all here. I can change my focal length. I can zoom out, which is going to give me super wide angle, or I can keep it at 50. I find in most cases, 50 is pretty good for like packaging design stuff, but like architecture, you might want to do a wider angle view, but that's all kind of set through here. I can also do a depth of field. So if I click on this, you can see it's all blurry, but I can click on the little tab right here and go owl pupil, set that as my focal point. And then I can change my f-stop just like in a camera. So really nice. Very cool. Maybe I'll bump it up a little bit more. Close this out. Let's do it again. Yeah, so try to get that depth of field correct, right? So you've got a little blur in the background. Okay. Cool. So we've got all of that set up. One thing I notice is that the eyes here do not like my material settings here quite as much. Okay. There. A little better. So I was just trying to get my eye color to glow a little bit more. Cool. And let's bump down on this. Let's do a little bit more shininess. Cool. All right, so I think this is kind of a monstrosity as far as colors go, right? I mean, that blue is a little oppressive, but whatever. At this point, it's just kind of a fun, creative way of talking about different techniques we can use. Cool. Let us go to our render settings. So Under our render settings here, of course, you want to make sure cycles is selected. Always remember that. It will not look as good in Eevee. Device, if you have a graphics processor, make sure you're using the GPU compute. Max samples here, all of this is fine. And then I actually don't have a problem with bumping this down to maybe a little bit less. You can do like 2,000 samples, whatever, but I'm going to leave it on mine at 4096. That's fine. So that is going to be how much the samples are, how often it's assessing the light. It's going to take longer the higher that number is, but it'll look better the higher the number is. Then the next more really kind of important thing is, of course, the resolution. So if I wanted to use 30, like 3000 by 10 by 1600, then I can go to view again here, camera, frame camera bounds. I can see how wide angle that is. Maybe I'll do 2000. Okay, zoom in a little bit more. All right. And then we can do a few other things here. Like let's go to these lights here, and I want to create more of a cast shadow behind it. So if I click on the area light here and click on this little light here, you can see where it says max bounces. If I lower that down, it's going to make more shadows, like stronger shadows. Like, well, if we do it drastically, let's do it drastically. Okay, so that's the light bouncing. All right. And I think we're pretty well set up. If I toggle this back here and then go back again here, let's let it assess. All right. You can change the light color too. Like maybe I'll make the light like a bluish light. And then I also maybe want to change the pedestal color here. Let me just delete this and create a new one. Okay. And then I can also bring the roughness down on the pedestal so that it kind of creates a nice little mirrored effect at the base there. Cool. All right, so once that's all set, we've got our image size, we've got our GPU compute cycle set up, samples, all of that set up. I can also turn on a denoiser, or you can bring this into Photoshop later on and denoise it yourself. So the next step is to hit F12 or to go to the rendering tab right here and go to render image. And once that is done, I'll be back. All right. All right, so this is the final render. Yes, it does look different than it did just previously, but I rendered it and I just realized I cannot in good faith just keep it the way it was. So I neutralized some of the tones, made them more analogous to one another, tweaked the lighting a little bit, and you know, nothing new as far as the parameters go that I changed, but you could totally just nerd out on this for a long time to try to get things to look the way you want them to, and I find it quite fun and rewarding. So this is our final rendering. Yes, by no means is it poster sized, but it is big enough for just a simple screen view here. And that's all we're looking for the owl. If you're printing at a larger size, you're definitely going to want to tweak the print settings, the output properties here. Just, you know, put it at the proper resolution based on what you're going to print. But I think this doesn't look too bad at all. So I'm going to stick with it. So I go to image, save, and I will save I'll render. And you can see my previous one right there. Looks kind of janky. Okay, so save it as, and we're good to go. Thank you very much, and hopefully this was informative.